Welcome to the Property Maintenance Show. We're brought to you by Octagon Work Services, and we're here to discuss our main mission, which is the property management industry, discussing vendor relations, discussing homeowner and tenant situations, and of course, controversial topics, and also stuff that no one else wants to talk about. So, hope you enjoy the show, and let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Property Maintenance Show. I'm here with my co-host Albert Taylor and myself, Paul Quail. Today we have a guest that can offer property management companies apartment marketing, employee education, lease-up, staffing and maintenance education. Smart Apartment Solutions has more than a decade's worth of success in the multifamily industry. We are here today with the owner, Megan, to talk about some very interesting topics. Thank you so much for joining us, Megan. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Paul and Albert, for having me and having a conversation with me today.
Absolutely.
Yes, of course. It's certainly our pleasure. So I want to kind of jump right into this to kind of get started. Maybe just start from the beginning. How did Smart Apartment Solutions get started? So what's the backstory there?
Sure. Well, definitely I would say Smart Apartment Solutions started out of frustration for a lack of support in the rental property management industry. My mother, Dawn Ford, our founder, started the business in 2008 in Michigan, which if anybody remembers back to that time, it was not a fun time here in the United States, and we were smack dab in the middle of a recession. And Detroit and Michigan, we were hit especially hard. We had already a stressed economy, and working through property management through her career, she just felt like there were resources that she could provide that weren't available to the people that were on site, and just a little tweak here and there where they could do their job smarter and maybe enjoy it more, and then really see the success and hit the occupancy goals that they wanted. And so she started as a consultant, really working with owners, going on site and helping with marketing and helping them get to their occupancy goals. And then that turned into some matchmaking with some contacts. We had a lot of people that were unemployed back in 2008. And so she knew a lot of people, and she was able to connect them with owners and operators and get them into positions so that they could grow with property management. And I simultaneously was working for another property management company in Metro Detroit as a troubleshooter. And I was traveling to Florida and helping with troubled sites down there, as well as our property in Dearborn Heights. And then part-time I was working with Smart and developing their training portion of our company. And so fast forward to 2012, I decided that we were getting really, really busy at Smart. Things were, really consuming my free time. And so I decided to take that leap, and I left my management company that I worked with and went full-time at Smart Apartment Solutions. And we've essentially rode every wave that we could. In 2013, there were a lot of changes and dynamics that shifted in our market. As the market started to pick up, we had new challenges where unemployment numbers went down. So finding talent and recruiting talent, especially in the maintenance arena, became very difficult. So we had to get really creative and really lean into our network and find different ways that we could find this untapped talent, maybe from other industries, and pull them in and show them what rental property management could offer to them. So steadiness, housing, reliability, opportunity for growth, all of that. And then in 2014, because we weren't busy enough, we thought, let's open a management company. We had a client that we had worked for that had a couple of properties and insisted that we manage for them. And so we found another pain point and a need in the market where larger operators were not wanting to take on smaller properties, specifically single-family homes or duplexes, because if you don't have a lot of them, or usually larger properties, that's where they can make the money that they need to support the staff and what they need to support the property. And so managing small properties is very unique and can be challenging. And we saw a real need in our market for that. And so Smart Moves was founded in 2014. And then we expanded Smart Apartment Solutions from Michigan into Ohio and then into Indiana and Pennsylvania, and then made some strategic moves during the pandemic. We were a 1099 company, which was unique and a great way for us to start out and kind of, absorb some of the costs and offset some of the costs as we were getting going. And then in the end of 2019, actually right before the pandemic, we made the decision that we were ready to take the next step and move it to a W-2 employee model. And so we partnered with an HR company, and that opportunity actually allowed us to go anywhere in the United States. So we could take our services there. So there we went through the pandemic. We went through a lot of changes and ups and downs and learned a lot of things about property management again and the struggles that people were going through. And in December of 2022, I purchased the business from my mother, Dawn Ford, and it's been just a whirlwind. I've been making giant changes, scary changes, but I'm excited about that. We are in the process right now of moving our company from a brick and mortar office in Ann Arbor to a completely remote business model. And so, through the last 2 years, we've been navigating what that looks like, what we need to do, all of the pieces and parts. And that's been really an eye-opening experience, but very inspiring. And the closer we get to that day at the end of this month, I just get so excited because I feel like we're able to retain and work with talent and not be restrained by barriers of, geography. We can really tap into some talent across the country, maybe even across the world, and offer solutions to our clients in maybe ways that they never thought of before. And so I think that opportunity is so exciting. And so to wrap it up, really, Paul, for what we do, we'll really do anything that's going to help get occupancy where it needs to go. If that's moving furniture in your office, I can do that. If it's knocking on doors for renewals, I can do that. If it's, shopping your competitors or leasing up your property, we're all hands in. Whatever we can do to support that occupancy goal, we're there to do it.
Awesome. Well, I have a quick question, a little bit off.
Sure.
So of all of the states that you're working in, which one do you find to be the easiest of all?
Definitely, I would say Michigan has been the easiest, and I think that's because, I live here. That's where our roots are. That's where my family is all from, and so the network naturally was a little bit easier. But I actually grew up in Colorado, and so I got used to kind of being a nomad or getting, making my way into newer markets or to, making friends in other places. And so we have found different ways and different strategies in each state. And I can tell you every city is different. Every apartment association that we get involved with is different. And if you take the time and really talk to the members and understand what, again, their pain points are, same thing we focused on in Smart Apartment Solutions, then you can start to hear what they're looking for. And if you have needs, then you can start having those conversations, and then you can start to move into those markets. Where we've also found some success is, as we all know, a lot of operators in property management have properties all over. And so where we've been able to solidify and really build and engage in our relationships here in Michigan, that has helped us as they've grown into other states surrounding Michigan as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, I guess I could ask the opposite, right? So which one would be the most challenging state?
So right now, I would say, honestly, Pennsylvania has been a tough nut to crack. We started out pretty strong when we were moving into that market, and we first started in the Pittsburgh market or anything, really on the west side of Pennsylvania, Ohio, since we had moved already into the Ohio market. And that's just been a little bit more challenging because, as we move into areas that are spread out a little bit more, we have more individual operators or owners. It can be a little more challenging to bring them into the fold or to make them aware that we can help them in some way or another. Sometimes people think with temporary staffing it's too expensive. I can't, afford that at my property. I have a very slim budget. But when we're able to talk to them and chat with them, usually they have budget for payroll in their budget. And if they have an open spot in their staff, then they have been budgeting for that person because it's open. And so they have the money there for staffing. And there are some strategic ways where we could identify a candidate, help streamline and move them through the processes quickly so that they're not spending a ton of money on staffing, and they can actually move that temporary staffer to a permanent employee with their team.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing, Megan. I do have a question that's come to mind.
Sure.
So was it challenging to kind of go from, physical office, having kind of in-house staff to kind of going remote? What were the challenges that you faced to
That's what I
make
was
that
thinking of.
transition?
Yeah, there has been a lot of barriers, and I would say a lot of them did start with me, where, it was difficult to kind of picture our business in this different way. And I think our biggest concern was that people would become disconnected. We have a very tight-knit, team at Smart, and, Makita, my staffing coordinator, she brought her son to the office from 2 weeks old to 2 years old. Every single day her son was there, and it's just, we've always had a very close family, situation or nexus, and COVID really challenged that, and we were concerned going to remote that would make it more isolating, or that, maybe people would have more of that silo effect, which we didn't want. And so communication became one of our biggest concerns. How would we keep communication flowing? How would we stay on top of the growth as we grew? Where do we store everything? What are we going to need in the home office? That was a big journey that we went through. Probably the biggest topic of conversation was around storage. We were able to reduce our paper down to about, we got rid of about 90% of it, but there was still that 10% that we have to retain, as management companies do. We have to keep files for a certain number of years, and there's certain things that we still felt like we needed to keep paper, and, trade show stuff and decorations and all of that. And uniforms. We have uniforms for our maintenance temporary staff. Where do we keep that? Where do we keep our Smarty candy? And so the logistics of how that was going to work, because we're in two different parts of the city. Makita and I live, a good hour and a half away from each other. Where our office was kind of the center. So I would say the biggest question that came up around moving to a remote business model was, where are we going to store everything? Where are the uniforms for our maintenance staffers going to go? Smarties, marketing, all of that. Makita and I live about an hour and a half away from each other. Our office was our central location. And so we had a lot of conversations around that. And what we ultimately came to was, we actually did a lease negotiation with Makita and rented a plot in her backyard and put up a shed. So an 8x10 shed, then we stocked that with shelves. We have everything in clear bins that are marked. So she's got, every style of shirt and long sleeve shirt and whatever the maintenance folks need out there to keep them stocked, all of their goodies and their onboarding packets, and then half of our marketing material. And then I have a storage unit that's closer to me, where I have more of the pertinent stuff, the files that I have to keep, all the trade show stuff, the wigs, the event decorations is all with me. And so once we were able to move past that, we were able to really move through a lot of the questions that came up, or I guess barriers that we put in place. We were able to convert our phone number to Google Voice, and so we were still able to keep our phone number. We came up with a very good storage solution through Google Drive and Trello. And so leaning on some of those product management tools that really helped us keep communication, keep everything organized, and tabs on things. And my favorite part is that we can do it all from the go. So if I have something that I need to upload to, the Drive on the property management side, or even on our marketing side, I can do all of that from my cell phone within a matter of a couple minutes.
Okay. Well, see there, Paul? Somebody else uses Trello. Paul didn't like Trello in the beginning. I showed him Trello, and he's like, "Oh, no, it's not for me." I'm like, "No, Paul, look, it moves. It has colors."
The thing is with me, right, is when I get used to an application, like, that's my application, and it's so hard to make the transition and the change.
Yeah.
So yeah, when Albert when Albert was introducing me to all these other new applications, I'm like, oh, I don't know about this
Yeah.
one. But then it just takes me time to get comfortable with them.
Yeah, no, I love Trello. I love the
Yeah,
colors and stuff, and yeah.
and I would love to dive deeper into it and really learn more about it, and have the time to do that. I mean, we've found some integrations with Plannyway where we're able to kind of manage our calendar and our schedule. It has a time tracking portion to it. So if you're really trying to ratchet down and get efficient on certain tasks, or as we were preparing for virtual assistants, what does that look like? Trello has been great for that. And I laugh when you say that you had resistance, because we used Trello before the pandemic and we were very comfortable with it, and then we just completely abandoned it during the pandemic. And then when we were hiring virtual assistants this year, we said we've got to have some kind of product, some kind of management or some kind of dashboard where everything can go. And people started saying, well, what about this, or what about Asana? And I'm like, no. We've already spent the time and the energy learning Trello. I don't want to go learn a new platform.
Mhm.
I want to invest in this one and see where it can take us. And so there are so many choices out there, and I think it's just really finding what works best for you. And I'm with you, Albert. I like the colors. I like
Mhm.
the customization where you can really make it, personalized.
Yeah, me too. We're actually using ClickUp, which is kind of similar. I mean, it has its little quirks and
Yeah,
stuff, but yeah, I guess for a management level, Trello's cool, and maybe for an organizational level, for employees and stuff, I think it's ClickUp because they can't mess it up too much. And Trello,
right,
you can,
right.
yeah, you can erase stuff big time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so Megan, when you're kind of hiring like virtual assistants, do you have like a filter process to determine who's a good candidate and who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I have a few. So I've actually just am in the process of ending my second round of hiring a virtual assistant. I hired two in March, and I used a matchmaking service, which I really have had some good luck with Sarah's folks, and she's great at training the virtual assistants, to understand the efficiencies and the support. And so they usually come with a lot of knowledge on these tools, like Trello and things that I don't even know about. And so that was one of my first steps, because I know there are a lot to choose from, and you could spend a lot of time just finding what is the best VA firm for me. So I started there, and then I started with a Google form application where I was really able to get clear with what I was looking for, so that I wasn't going into my request blind, and I just wasn't, asking for help. I could get very specific on the tasks. And I think also we had to work through some processes on, what could I let go of, and what could I, in lack of better words, automate or peel off to somebody else. What could I write a procedure, a standing operating procedure that was easy enough for someone to really pick it up and take it. So when you got into that mindset and we kind of went through that journey and wrote the application and figured out those tasks, that made it a lot easier. So then after I interviewed them, I would typically do, or after the application rather, I would have a little test where it would say, if you don't hear from me within 24 hours after hitting submit, send a follow-up email to this address. And that was one of my very first filters, because with a virtual assistant, you want somebody that's going to pay attention to the details and is going to read everything and follow those directions. And that helped me in both rounds eliminate a few candidates right off the top. And then depending on the job that I'm looking for, now I'm looking for somebody that's going to be really a support for our clients and help us with our website and really be a jack of all trades. And so for that person, I have been very meticulous in monitoring their follow-up. Do they use video when they follow up? What kind of tools or technology? Even how comfortable were they on the conversation around WordPress? We use WordPress for our website, and that conversation can also vet people out, because people have very strong feelings about WordPress. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you. And it's like, that's good to know, because I don't want to put somebody in a position they don't like. And I'm also not going to redo my website and all of my, automation. So I think those were some of the ones that we've used to help, find that right candidate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have pretty similar platforms then. Yeah, we also use WordPress too for
Yeah.
our website or websites. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I would say our hiring process is we do everything kind of manual. Like, so our filtering is, we pre-interview the candidate. We actually do a video interview, so we can
Great.
watch it back
Body language and
and hear, understand their body language, personality. Um, we make sure our training platform's correct for them as well.
we do have a form too.
Form
Yeah,
as
I
well.
use it. Hmm.
Kind of, they fill out the form. Um, we preferably like to find people that have the prior experience in the property management industry, but our strengths in our company is maintenance. So
Also training
like
too. Yeah, we
training and
yeah,
maintenance. Yeah.
yeah, we can find the characteristics we need and just train them. Some that
hmm
Right.
that works out sometimes too.
So I have this
Right.
question, right? Because I've kind of had a few debates here and there about this. So
Okay.
virtual assistants, like some companies, their expectations with them is, for example, let's say they hire someone that they need 40 hours a week, right? Which is 8 hours a
Mm.
day, an 8-hour shift. But then they tell me, they go, yeah, but I don't expect 40 hours from them just because they're remote. But I disagree with that, but I wanted to hear what your
We're
thoughts are
scratching our heads
on
like,
that.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so just so that I understand the question. So the client will want someone to commit to the 40 hours, but they know that the person's not going to work the 40 hours.
Yeah, it's basically, oh,
Is that?
because they're remote, and I did see a couple of surveys about this, that just
Mhm.
because someone's remote, that some companies are going, well, we're not expecting them to do 40 hours because they're remote. Maybe there's distractions at
Oh.
home and all these other things. So it goes from working 8 hours today to maybe, well,
Maybe
based on
6.
surveys, we only expect 6. And I'm like,
Huh.
No, no.
a job is a job, right? If I'm hiring someone to do 40 hours, that's what we're expecting. It shouldn't be,
Right.
oh, because of a survey, we're only expecting 6.
Hmm.
And again, we're in the outsourcing business. We outsource. We have
Right.
employees in the Philippines. Um, you know, and I know our employee works the full 8 hours. I haven't seen them like do 6 or 5.
So I would actually agree with you, Paul, that if you're, in the virtual assistance world, you're hiring them by the hour and you're hiring for those hours. And in my mind, they're very efficient so that they can get a lot done in that, allotted hour. And that I need all of the hours that I can pay for. In the consulting world, I think that's where it gets a little bit different, where, you look at someone's expertise and the experience they have behind them. They may bill you for an hour, but it only takes them 10 minutes, where, someone who isn't as experienced may take the full hour. So I think in the consulting world, I can get that, where, there's some wax and wean, but I think in the virtual assistant world, especially in that regard, when you're very clear about the number of hours, I want all the hours used, because as I've learned with my virtual assistants, they've gotten more efficient in learning the tasks. They don't take as long to do, the task in the 2 hours that we have allotted. So there's more that they're able to take on, or to bring more efficiencies. And that's the goal that they should always be working towards.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Had this conversation when I was working in the same company as Paul. I said there's two different viewpoints. You could think of yourself as an employee, which I never really liked too much, or you could think of yourself as an independent contractor, which is my motivation. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm representing my company, I want to show the value of what they're paying me to do my service. So I'm like, okay, this is my company, my image, and this is my service. So that just the mentality. I mean, for the company you're working for is
Yeah.
pretty much the same, but yeah, it's just your own internal vision of who you are. Right? Remember that, Paul?
Right. Right.
hmm Yeah, I absolutely agree, but I really don't know why people have that idea, like, yeah, I hire them for 40 a week, but I only expect 6 per day because of they work remote, and I'm like, but then they have less distractions. They're not in an office. They're in a comfortable, quiet space, which again is probably most
Right.
companies' requirements. There's no reason to say that. so yeah, it's just
Yeah, and I think too in the regard that, you know, when you're working from home, things do blend, and so it is harder to track hours, I guess, per se, because, you know, you might have to stop in the middle of the day once or twice and do something else, but then you're working at night, and so you're still making up the hours, or the work, or the project is still getting done. And I think that, you know, you bring up an interesting point, because that's been a struggle with us as we've moved to remote. With my mom and older leadership, she hears me call her older. I'm sorry, Mom, but with more seasoned leadership, her expectations were very similar to that. She is a baby boomer. You know, you come and punch the clock and you work set hours and yada yada, and then not being able to supervise people in that regard in the remote setting, and really having to trust your people, you know, that they're going to put whatever the amount of time it is to get the job done. And that's really, you know, focusing on that culture, even with our virtual assistants, but with our smart internal team, is that I don't ever want to hear that's not my job. And there is no, you know, I clock out at 5 just because it's 5. If the job isn't done, you stay till the job is done.
Okay, yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, yeah, that employee mentality is like it's a big blockade for some people. So they're just working the hour and they just want to work those hours. And when it reaches 5 or 6 in some cases, and they're off. Yeah, they don't know anything about any company. They're free.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that comes with critical thinking, and that comes, you know, even to go full circle in identifying the virtual assistant for your team or your team member, is do they have that mentality to stay with the job till it's done?
Exactly.
mhm. Yeah, and kind of going back to your point, Megan, about trust, right? So that's why like we have that filtering process where we really want to get to know the person, right? And know, do you know what? Can we trust this person? You know, when we give them a task, are they going to follow through with it, or is it going to be a bunch of excuses?
Right. Or their ambitions too. So we ask the question, are you interested in being a leader or a supervisor? They're like, no. Then, well, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
our training is like we've kind of covered a lot of things. Like for example, like power outages is one, natural disasters, internet connections, how to troubleshoot that issue. Because these are like one of the main excuses.
Yeah.
Like that people would say, they go, "Oh, my internet was out for like 30 minutes,"
hmm
and
Oh, there's an earthquake. I was gone for 2 hours. Oops.
there's an earthquake, and you know, so we've kind of like modeled our training program, like kind of our new employee onboarding process of that,
Yeah.
because those are kind of the main things that come up. So when we've covered all those bases, and let's say they were having some trouble with something, and they didn't follow the process or, you know, our policy, then that's when we can have a further discussion with them. But it's always good to outline it, especially, you know, in the remote
Yes.
workers industry. It's very important.
Yeah, and I would say one of the best tools that I've had with onboarding my virtual assistants, and I'll use this probably for any employee forward, is on Trello. It will write that standard operating procedure, you know, the step-by-step, what are expectations, here's the links to get to where you need to go. And then I'll also record that on Loom and do a screen recording of the specific steps. And so we've got that library. So if, you know, someone leaves and I've got to replace somebody, we've got it there. But then we're, like you said, we're really clear in outlining what our expectations and how we want things to look and feel and move along in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, we have pretty similar processes, don't we? Yeah. We have. Yeah, not Loom, but we have Camtasia and we have our website. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
similar.
definitely. So I guess, Megan, I wanted to get into kind of a different topic here is,
Sure.
have you ever had any challenges with educating any of your clients in the property management industry? So I know you have a lot of courses on your website. If you'd like to kind of talk
A lot.
through them, and is there any stories you can share with us as well?
Oh gosh, lots of stories. So especially in the temporary staffing realm, and bringing people that are, from other industries into the property management industry. When we first started out, we always had started with onboarding training, and I think that had logistic challenges in itself, where we would hold like a monthly training at our office in Ann Arbor, and we ended up moving it to Saturdays because it was difficult for me to do it during the week, and a lot of people were also maybe working in other positions and transitioning, so Saturday is what they could offer. Lots of variations. I'd have people sleep through class, or as you said, every excuse in the book of why they couldn't get there on time, or showing up in their pajamas. A whole variety of things. And, at SMART, we have always looked at, especially the temporary staffing process, is we're working with folks that are coming from a lot of different situations and have a lot of different needs that maybe could be unique to one another. And in most cases, they're not yet ready for permanent employment. We're kind of like the employment with training wheels. And so Makita, my staffing coordinator, is a saint. She's very patient, but she has worked through so many barriers with staff to help get them into permanent jobs. And so, helping people get tickets paid off so that they can get their license back, or, maybe it's us helping finance a car, fronting them some money on their paycheck so that they can get secure transportation or secure housing or childcare. All of the barriers and things that we look at, especially when we look at the unemployment rate at 4%, a lot of economists will say that 4% are the unemployable. We disagree. We're just saying they're the employment challenge. They need a little bit of extra TLC and support to kind of get back into the workforce. And then when they're done with us, we're able to place them with a client and hopefully have good success rates. But we've had so many stories. I mean, gosh, I've had stories where I've hired maintenance people and they've managed to pass the maintenance assessment and go through all of our fair housing training and customer service training and answer the questions just how you want. And then they'll show up on site without tools.
Oh.
And they don't own tools. They didn't know they needed to bring tools.
Oh,
and it's
no.
like, how do you work in maintenance and not know you need at least some even a multifunctional screwdriver or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have mine here.
And so, kind of.
Yeah, there's mine.
I have several, right? And so we then found that also as a learning opportunity too. If we could identify someone that maybe had no experience in maintenance but had the mindset and tested well in the tests and understood, as you guys know, in the maintenance arena, they're not afraid to take something apart and put it back together and break it down to a million different screws. That doesn't intimidate them. If we could find somebody like that, then we could partner with them with a seasoned maintenance person on a temporary assignment and then really bring them into the fold. And we had a lot of success with that, with being able to buddy people up and bring people into our industry. I would say probably one of the biggest challenges we had is when we were converting people from construction into maintenance, and understanding the softer side of residents and dealing with residents. And you might have the technical skills and understand how to do carpentry and plumbing and electrical, but as you guys know, residential property management brings a whole world of customer service and working in people's homes and that. So hopefully I answered your question correctly. I know I went around and about, but lots and lots of challenges and stories I could share.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that did someone actually show up in pajamas? Did that actually happen?
Yes. Oh, yes. I've had that many times.
Oh my God.
And in the beginning, I would just kind of let them stay in training, and I just went along with it. And then I would talk, with their supervisor and be like, that's a huge red flag, because this was a business thing. They should know that. When we went further along, I think we got a little bit more strict about it. But we also saw that as an opportunity that we needed to, maybe we weren't, setting expectations clear even that far in, the beginning of the onboarding process, and to be fair, if you don't tell someone that they need to dress professionally, and if they don't know what professional looks like, then we also then got very visual with showing what professional looks like. So we have, images of different kinds of attire that is appropriate to wear on site and what's not. And uniforms helped a lot with that. And that was another pain point. We have temporary staff, uniforms that can be very expensive. We may have someone that work with us a week, a day, and so to send them, a full line of clothing was a challenge, and it's not something that we make a lot of money off of, but what it brings for our client and what it brings for the staffer is worth it, because the client likes that they know they can, they look professional. We have peace of mind that they are professional looking and dressed, but it also helps them with confidence, which was great when we started getting that feedback from the maintenance technicians, that they took a lot of pride being able to wear a uniform. It made them feel like a team member and that someone was investing the time in them and taking that chance. And so uniforms, we talked about it with storage, but those are something that are here to stay. And that was just a really eye-opening marketing and employee retention moment. And something so simple. People do uniforms all the time, but I think sometimes they don't get as much credit as they should.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually a psychological thing. So you dress for success. You have the clothes, and it actually
Right.
affects the way you think and act. So
Right.
definitely, I'm a uniform
Yeah.
person myself.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember my dad would tell me when I was like a teenager, he's like, if you're not feeling good, just, dress nice, wear a shirt, tie, maybe
Hmm.
a nice blazer.
Right, yeah.
That'll change the way you
Yeah.
feel. And if you're gonna go into a job interview, like dress nice, feel proud, go in. And it does help. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, and Paul thought I was
Yeah.
exaggerating. We have a training video where I actually specify, okay, if there's nudity or you're not dressed correctly, that's actually a strike. And Paul's like, yeah, it's a little extreme. I'm like, well, I've seen some things.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I'll share a story with you on this. One of the onboarding processes we do with temporary staff is we have them send a headshot, a picture of themselves, and the instructions are, take it on a white wall, shoulder up. And 2 different occasions I have had maintenance technicians send pictures without a shirt on. And so you do have to tell them about nudity, because I have gotten those pictures and I'm like, obviously I can't use this on your report card to send to the client.
And recycle bin. Boom. Yeah.
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 Oh wow.
I've seen some of those. Yeah. It's like, really? Couldn't find a
Yeah.
T-shirt or something?
Right. Right.
Yes. Okay. So that'll be staying in our training section then.
Yeah. But it should stay. Yeah.
So Megan, I know you mentioned about the pandemic. So I guess my question is, what are your current thoughts on the property management industry in 2023? How do you think it's performing this year?
Well, I think, on a legislative front, it's been very difficult. And I think that's something that, I wish I would have paid attention to younger in my career or cared about more. I think when I was on the site level in the leasing and assistant manager capacity, that stuff I didn't feel like affected me. And now that I own a business and I own some rental properties and I work very closely with our owners in our management company, it's the kind of stuff that keeps you up every single night. And I think that is something that we're going to continue to face and continue to have to work on. And part of the challenge comes with us and how our industry is viewed and how the general population views us. I mean, for a long time, people have kind of had this impression that we don't really work in our industry. Like, like we don't have jobs, or that, you know, people are just collecting money and not really doing anything. And I think we haven't done a great job of telling the day-to-day stories of what our maintenance technicians are doing and what our leasing and our management teams are doing and all of the good that they do to try to maintain a property and make it a great place to live. I don't think most of the general population would even understand all the ins and outs that a maintenance professional goes through just in one day, just in one regular day. And so I think that we're going to have to get better at telling those stories and telling those inside peaks and showing the good, and putting a real personalized face back to our industry. And that also is going to be with us talking better about our industry. You know, I grew up in this industry and I've heard people refer to it as I fell into it, or just something is, it's, you know, just as it's not like it's an important industry, and I disagree. We help maintain and manage multi-million-dollar assets, and we're the third largest industry in the country, and I think that we should talk about it like that. It is a career. It can have a lot of opportunities and growth in many, many different facets and where you find your passion, and so we need to talk about it in a better light. I think that we have seen, as far as more units come on the market, that's a good thing. So if you talk absorption rate, we're starting to see that slow down, which means hopefully rents will start to drop. But according to the Apartment Association, the National Apartment Association, we need 4 million units a year. And so I'm working with a client that worked on a affordable housing property that's for public housing, very affected individuals, and 48 units, it took 21 years to build. That's not really going to hit that need of 4 million units a year. So I think there's a lot of focus. We need to focus on that in the general population. I think our industry is going through some huge changes because of the pandemic that are awesome, in the fact that we are embracing the virtual world and really becoming more customer centric. So I'm seeing more self-guided tours. I'm seeing more you know, touch-free move-ins, and that's still staying through the pandemic, and putting the scheduling and that back on the customer and allowing it to be on their schedule and what works for them, I think is such a great move and pivot in our industry. And I think what we talked about today, embracing virtual assistants and that support and looking at things differently, there are solutions where we don't have to spend a ton of money and have offices and things like that. There are ways that we can do this much better. And I think that's what we'll be focusing on, is the virtual digital world, and we'll also be talking a lot about logistics and how that all works.
That's an interesting point. I'm also a sci-fi writer, so I've always imagined, okay,
Yeah.
property manager, maybe I've heard that they were selling pieces of the moon, like the land. So I always thought, yeah, maybe a property manager. Yeah, if Elon Musk hurries up, then we can be buying land on Mars or something and renting it out.
Right.
Yeah.
It's probably a market that would go there. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and it will be virtual, right? You can't be going to Mars and the moon all the time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Megan. Like, you know, for example, with our show, like, I think it's the perfect platform, right? To have these conversations, to talk about more stories and things that, you know, we've went through, especially from a maintenance point of view. Because I do think it's definitely in the top 3 as like the most important process in a property management company. It's what keeps things, as they say, keeps the wheels spinning, right? Maintenance is every day. You know, as soon as, you know, an employee logs in for the day, they have a list of follow-ups and maintenance issues to resolve, and it is every day. So it's good to have those conversations and talk about them. But I do have a question, right? Because it's always come to my mind, like, how does the industry kind of like promote like property management as a career for the younger generation? So I know, like, let's say like a 20-year-old out there, I wonder, like, what's the process to make them realize and go, you know what, I want to be a property manager.
Actually, I think I kind of test that, right? The moon and Mars and stuff, right?
Well, that's one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's going to be, you know, getting and working with our youth. I think, you know, part of the bigger cycle is changing the perception of our industry right now. I mean, housing affordability has been challenging, and unfortunately people don't understand that that's, we're not picking the rents. That's based on the supply and demand and what's available, and the costs, to run the property have gone up exponentially. But I think, so having more positive conversations, changing that perception, that we're not just, I had this vision of landlords when I grew up that it was like this woman in a muumuu that smoked cigarettes on tour and like threw keys at you. And I think that's kind of the perception or stigma that people still have as the word of landlord. So changing that, I think getting with the youth, working even with high schools again, embracing more trade schools. We're seeing in the Ohio area, in Cincinnati, where they have one specific high school has a whole program that in 9th grade, students can start getting into welding and start actually earning that certification in that trade, so that by the time they're graduating high school, they are rolling into a very well-paying job. And there are going to be and will always be people that don't necessarily want to go to college, that want to be able to do something technical. And I think specifically in maintenance, if we could start catching those folks early and bringing them into the fold and showing them the glamour behind property management, that, they can make huge decisions on a property. They can make a big impact. They can lead a team if that's what they want to do. They can compete in national maintenance competitions if that's what they want to do. If they want to be a speaker and talk about it or train people in maintenance, they can do that. They could go and do efficiencies. They could work with suppliers. There's so many different avenues.
All right, awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're reaching our little time limit here. So, yeah, we had an awesome conversation there. And we definitely have enough questions for part 2, if not a part 3. We'll see. But, yeah, we'll be scheduling a part 2 here and very shortly, hopefully this month. And, yeah, we hope to see all of our audience here on the same show.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us. And yes, definitely, we're going to be doing a part 2 because there's so many other topics to discuss. So again, to all our viewers and listeners, thank you so much. Until next time.
All right. See you in the next one.
Bye.
Thank you. See you next time.